In this video, we'll talk about the color mapping features within the Epilog Print Preferences menu. I have here in Rhino the same sample file that I used for the General tab in the Print Preferences, and I've got an outer ring, and I've added 2 additional rings all on the default layer, and then I have a series of shapes added to layer 1. If we go and look at layers and look at default layer, you will see that everything on the default layer is being cut with the width of hairline, which means when I go to cut this, the Epilog laser will see all 3 of these as a vector cut. Since the General tab only gives me 1 set of criteria, all 3 of these will cut with that and cut all the way through the material. However, what I want in this part is I want these 2 inner circles to cut, but not cut all the way through. I still want that thin hairline, not like a raster area that has some thickness to it. I want as thin a line as possible, but I don't want it to cut all the way through. So what I'm going to do here is I'll select this outer ring. I'll go to Properties for that ring. The line width is still set by the layer, but I want to change the display color, and I'm going to pull this down, and you'll see here a list of standard colors. These are RGB color codes for red, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and magenta. If I pick other, it will allow me to pick any color imaginable, but notice there's an RGB code down here. So if I pick red, the RGB code for red is 25500. If I'm off even by a single number, that will be a different color for the laser, so that it won't use those settings for this new color that I think it's going to be cutting for red. So I want to stick with those standard RGB color codes, in this case for red 255, green 0, blue 0. If we go to look at other pieces, blue is 255 for blue, 0 for the other 2. Magenta is 255 for red and 255 for blue and 0 for green. It's very important that you match those color codes. So I'm going to pick a standard color. I'm going to pick green, and I want the print color to be set by display. That just makes these 2 match. Additionally, I'm going to do this center one, and I'm going to do it not quite as deep as the outer one, but I still want that thin line. So I'm going to set it to yellow and the print color by display. So now I have those 2 set differently based on color. So now when we go to File, Print, here's my drawing, and I've already set the size of the drawing and things just like we saw in the intro. I'm going to go into Properties, and I've already got this set. The raster speed, this will be for the red shapes. The vector setting will be for the black or all the other pieces that aren't the colors that I choose. So this is the same as we did in the previous video. This time I'm going to go to color mapping, and I'm going to check the color mapping box. So first off, I have red in my drawing, so I need to make sure that I change that. Down here in the corner I have 3 options. Always leave the air assist on. I can uncheck vector because the red lines are a thickness line, so those still will not vector cut if they're not a hair line. But I can still change the speed and power just for this particular cut. So for instance, the speed for the raster for acrylic, which is what this will be cut in, is 100, and the power is 35. But maybe I have one that I want a little deeper than the others. If I had changed the color on it, I could set something different here. I'm going to move those over and see here in the menu that those have changed. I had a green that I used, so I'm going to click on green, and this will be a vector cut. And with the vector cut for 1/8 inch acrylic, to go all the way through, they recommend 15 speed and 100% power and frequency of 5,000. Now we don't use 100%, and I don't want these to go all the way through, so I'm going to back this to about 70, and I'm going to drop the speed down to about 10. That's going to give me a lighter cut than the one going all the way through. Add that. I also have a yellow, and again I want to go even lighter with this, so I'm going to still stay around 10, but I'm going to set the power down to around 30 and keep the frequency up and uncheck raster for that. The effect that this will have is that outer ring, since it's not a color on this list, will be cut at the default that we set in the general tab, and that'll cut all the way through. The red, since it's red within the drawing, will cut with these settings. The green will cut at 10% speed and 70% power, so it's going to cut a nice thin vector line for me, but not go all the way through. And then the yellow will cut an even shallower line than the first, but a nice thin line. I can still do this with raster, so if I had my red shapes around the outside, if I had changed some of the colors, I could have some of those deeper than others. And then I'll hit OK, and then I'll go to print just like a normal job.